of Duty 2 is one of the better Xbox 360 games available at the console's launch, and it certainly showed in sales. It's still one of the best-selling games for the platform. Realizing the sales potential of the series, Activision has instituted a platoon approach in developing the games. While Infinity Ward developed last year's game, this time around Treyarch is taking up the battle with Call of Duty 3. The result is a game very similar to last year's outing with one big bonus, a full-featured online component. Will it be third time's a charm for Call of Duty, or will it receive a dishonorable discharge? World War II is an amazing story in its own right, and an experience that many people hope humanity will never have to endure ever again. Even after all these years, animosity towards the Nazis has not waned one bit, which makes them the perfect villains for video games. But at the same time, there have probably been 100 games based on the war, and at this point, the well is finally beginning to run dry. You need no further evidence of this than Call of Duty 3. The game picks up after the landing at Normandy and focuses on various Allied forces as they attempt to run the vile Nazis out of Paris. The game jumps around from country to country without committing too much time to any specific military force. One minute you're playing a Canadian soldier, and the next you're bumping elbows with Scottish infantry with suspect voice work.
Speak bloody English, for Christ's sake!
Along the way, you'll get the typical wartime stereotypes. The soldier who doesn't want to fight, the guy who hates working with the other countries, and so forth. While it's great to get 4 different perspectives of a war, you never spend enough time in the standard issue boots of any one soldier to build a bond with them. So what you end up with is a mix of convoluted missions and people that rarely have anything to do with each other. It makes it difficult to care. If you played Call of Duty 2, then Part 3 isn't going to be some life-changing revelation. The levels are still completely linear, and there are plenty of times where there's a fence a couple of feet high or a short pile of sandbags that a soldier could easily jump over that keep you barreling along a predetermined path. This formula was alright in the first game and pushing it in Part 2, but here it feels like far less than you would expect from a high-profile, second-generation Xbox 360 game. As you run through the linear levels, there's plenty of cover available to protect your hide, but some of the objects have no collision detection whatsoever, meaning you can get shot even when you're safely tucked behind an object. With no cover system in the game, it can be clunky ducking out from behind various objects to pop off some shots, but luckily, the Nazis rarely get close enough to make it a huge issue. As you might guess, Call of Duty 3 is a history lesson on World War II weapons. This is one aspect of playing as 4 different countries that actually helps the game, as you'll get your hands on all the guns they used during the conflict. Firing without looking down the barrel can be effective at close range with the right weapon, but more times than not, you're going to have to look down the sights to line up a shot. This is where you really appreciate the different armaments, as each has a different peep sight, range, and accuracy. It's incredibly realistic, and you'll undoubtedly fall in love with a few of them. Just in time for them to be taken away as you assume control of a new country. Mission objectives run the typical war game gamut. You'll have to liberate squads that have been pinned down, break through enemy lines to allow your tanks to roll in, go inside houses to break up nests of enemies, and so on. You'll also jump behind the wheel of a jeep and act as a spotter for a tank, but these are all things that have been done many times before. After the 3rd iteration of the series, you'd think you'd be calculating mortar fire, but alas, it's the same game as last year in this regard. The single-player quest will take you around 10 hours to complete, and on the default difficulty setting, the Nazis offer up little resistance. Most will just stand at their posts, waiting to be killed or toss a grenade or two. Then there's the radar, which constantly shows you where you're supposed to go. The plentiful checkpoints only make the game easier, so we recommend playing it on the harder difficulty settings to get the most out of your purchase. Call of Duty 2 is a great game, but its multiplayer options are extremely limited, especially for a series that began its life on the PC. Call of Duty 3 certainly fixes that, and it's the closest thing to EA's Battlefield series on any console. Up to 24 players can war it out at once on any of the game's traditional modes, like Capture the Flag, Deathmatch, Headquarters, etc. There are no new earth-shattering modes here, but just getting that many players on a map at once, without the frame rate taking a nosedive, is an accomplishment. In addition to the traditional on-foot infantry play, you can hop into tanks, jeeps, and motorcycles and speed up the conflict. There's also a variety of character classes to choose from that ensure that there's a role to play for every type of person. Overall, the multiplayer options are impressive for a PC game, and absolutely astounding for a console shooter. Call of Duty 3 hits the status quo in just about every respect, except for the multiplayer, where it exceeds it. It's disappointing to see such limited growth in the single player over the years, but the good news is, you'll be able to finish it off in no time and head online where the real game lies. Just like prior games in the series, there are plenty of scripted events taking place constantly. The opening sequence, a humongous conflict with literally dozens of soldiers in battle, is absolutely breathtaking, with a nice surround sound system. But after playing for a while, the entire game ends up feeling scripted. You'll come into an area, take out a predetermined number of enemies, and then the smoke clears and you move on to the next battle. This process repeats over and over until the game is finished. You can take your time and pick off enemies one by one, and seemingly never die. Enemies rarely go on the offensive, so there are few surprises to be had. Most of the unexpected moments occur when you round certain corners or open certain doors, and you're jumped by an enemy. These up-close battles begin with you jamming on the trigger buttons attempting to gain control of your weapon. Then a face button icon will pop up on screen. Press it, and you'll send the Nazi spiraling to the ground where you can finish him off. While it provides the few surprises the game has to offer, they're ultimately almost too easy to complete. Other additions come in the form of setting charges, where you'll have to input a set of commands to arm them. While the attention to detail is appreciated, it doesn't really add much to the game. If anything, after you've done it a couple of times, it just becomes an annoyance. Other than these new features, the rest of Call of Duty plays just as you'd expect. The gunplay is solid, but unspectacular. Most of the enemies can be dropped with a single shell, almost regardless of where they're struck. With that said, it's certainly a functional game, it's just a little too paint by the numbers. We definitely have sympathy for Call of Duty 3. There are so many World War II games out there that surprising people isn't easy. And in this regard, it fails. It has its moments, but overall, it's a disappointing step sideways for one of the more revered franchises in the industry. The good news is that it's the most in-depth multiplayer shooting experience on the consoles, making it a game still worth picking up.